Dr. Mason West.
Welcome into this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Mason West, joined today by Danny Meehan and Khari Thompson. How y'all doing?
Man, I'm glad the holidays are over. Happy New Year to you two friends. Just been a long day. This kid wouldn't go down for a second nap. I was trying to get dinner ready and prepped up. She was like, "Nah, fam, you thought," and then I had to hop in the shower real quick before hopping on.
I hear you on that. That's actually, I was throwing some dinner stuff together real quick before I came down here and also paying attention to the Notre Dame game, which, by the way, you remember I told you it was 13-3 at halftime. Opening kickoff goes to Notre Dame and they take it back for a touchdown. They are beating on Georgia right now. It is 20-3. Who had that one?
Good for them.
On the bingo card.
Damn. I mean, I did throw, a unit on Notre Dame just with the thought that they were going to pull off the win here. So I like that. I'm a fan.
I'm very conflicted on Notre Dame because I grew up in an area as a kid where it was a lot of city workers and people who never attended college or anything like that, which is fine. Not for everyone. Trade school, working for the city. I work for the city. It's not a big deal. But they were. It was the whole area was Notre Dame fans. But ironically, none of these people could ever fathom the thought of even getting into Notre Dame. And they also railed against higher education, which is really funny to then identify with this place that is probably considered one of the top 20 universities in the nation.
But I mean, it's up there. It's good.
It's a really good educational institution, and the only reason you identify with it is because your last name starts with MC or the letter O.
Yeah, and I mean, so for me, I'm a Notre Dame graduate student. I went there for biological sciences, got a master's degree there and all that.
Big smart guy.
But not even like that. But I mean, I was there the building that we worked in was literally like kitty corner to the stadium. So like some days we would leave the game. It was like too cold, or like my wife wasn't about sitting around there for 4 hours and nothing like that watching no football. So we would scoot over to the biology room and throw it up on the projector. That was back when Jalen Smith was going there, linebacker Jalen Smith. I caught him walking in and out of the biology building for class every once in a while. Sheldon Day, who played for a little while as an interior defender in the NFL. Yeah, just kind of randomly.
Was Lewis Nix on that squad too?
Lewis Nix was. I can't remember if he was a little bit before that. I think he was. I think he played with them. Yeah.
Rest his soul. He's gone now.
Yeah.
But actually, Notre Dame was my go-to where I really wanted to go there for undergrad, and I applied and got in. And then one of the reasons I didn't go was because I found out that there was a basic swimming proficiency that you had to pass, which got eliminated in 2014. But and I was like, screw that. I don't like swimming. I don't want to swim. I have no desire to. And so therefore that is the main reason I didn't end up going to Notre Dame.
How interesting.
But my confliction is I really, really like Marcus Freeman. I think he's a really good football coach.
I think he's proving it now.
And I just never could stand Brian Kelly. You let a kid die on the scissor lift when they're telling you.
I'm actually we were friends with his sister. The kid.
Oh my God.
So that was after. We went to graduate school after that whole situation. But yeah, screw Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly was. He would definitely not have Notre Dame winning this game. I will say they always crapped the bed anytime there was a big game.
Yeah. Needless to say, he had a multitude of issues. There was the Prince Shembo situation too.
I mean, there was a time actually he pushed one of his assistant coaches in the throat on the sideline once. And that was actually a dude that I played basketball with, coincidentally. It was like the strength and conditioning coach for Notre Dame at the time. I don't know if he still does it. But yeah, he got in his face at one point because he was talking to the official or whatever, and he's just like, "You will not." Like he's like almost trying to force choke this dude on the sideline. It was messed up. Anyway, we are talking too much about Notre Dame and winning football. We need to get back to talking about some losing ass football. Let's go.
There's way of losing football. So a little bit of a different show today, just because I don't want to talk really about this upcoming game. It's stupid. There's no reason to. Week 18, this was actually one thing I'd written down as potential like talking point. Do you guys have a problem with the fact that week 18 across the league has just become like a waste of time, except for 2 to 3 games that end up mattering for playoff stuff?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because in a way, right? So, week 18, right, it gets tacked on as an extra week. You took away the preseason, right? And so now that you have an extra game for teams to either, stretch their playoff dominance out a little bit more, what have you. Now it's just like another preseason game, right? Just another game to kind of get everybody, get the youngins in, get some guys some basic training, get some cardio, right? So in the end, you can't escape preseason game 4, no matter what you do.
Well, and it sucks because you gotta have guys like Josh Allen's going to play like a quarter just so he can keep his consecutive games going.
Yeah.
But then you have I think it's which team is it?
And that's a funny one because obviously I'm out here, right? So you got the Bills who are going to rest their starters, and you've got the Patriots who currently hold the number 1 overall pick who don't want to win. So, but they're like, hey, we're going to play Drake May. He's going to start. And it's like he's going to start. Yeah.
So
I feel like that's going to be one of those like, come on, like who's wants to lose more.
Well, and then you have teams like the Bengals who, I mean, they should have won other games, so this is also their fault. But they actively need the Chiefs to lose, I think it is. No, the Chiefs to win because the Chiefs have to beat the Broncos in order for the Bengals to have a chance to make the playoffs. And it's just like, cool, thanks for that. Just sitting all your starters. It's just one of those things where it's like week 18 is just such a waste of time, unless you're the Lions and the Vikings / Buccaneers, because those
might as well only watch for that game.
Essentially, that's the only game this upcoming week that I really care about. But we are going to go into our training room roundup. This is one of the few specific Packers-Bears conversations we're going to have today. Taking a look here. Apparently, the Bears just have an illness going around because first it was Rome Odunze, but you also have Larry Borum, and then you also had Kyler Gordon pop up today with an illness. But Rome still didn't participate after being out on Wednesday. Borum was a full participant on Thursday today. And then, of course, like I just said, Kyler Gordon popped up with this illness going on. Whether it's real illness or the I don't want to play football illness, who knows what's going on there. But you had a lot of guys who are not participating. Elijah Hicks, Travis Homer, Tevin Jenkins. He's probably played his snap as a Bear, which is pretty crazy. But that's kind of like the main bulk of what's going on. Other than that, you're going in with a relatively as full as you can be at this time of the year offense. So that's fun, I guess.
Yay.
Yeah.
Do we care? I'm going to watch because it's football and I'm a Bears fan, but I don't care about the game. Like a couple weeks ago, Mason, on the show, I went on the whole rant of this team keeps on like playing the fucking fan base face and like treating us like we're stupid. Like at a certain point, you keep telling me things don't matter. I'm going to treat you like you don't matter.
See, this is the great thing about being a Bears fan out of state, because it's like I can, if I'm feeling the urge, like, oh yeah, I'll illegally stream it, I'll watch, I'll do the whole thing. But it's like if they're bad, it's kind of just like with the White Sox. If they're bad, I'm not going to make the effort to watch them. Why would I do that? So yeah, no, I'm absolutely not going to pay attention to the Chicago Bears unless like I have a Packers fan friend who's like him and Maya, my daughter, our friends. So sometimes we'll go over to their houses. He's actually like the coolest Packers fan I know. So he won't rag on me too hard about how the Bears suck. So maybe if it's that, I'll go over, but I'm not watching that game. I don't care about it. I don't care if they win or lose. All I want is for Caleb Williams to not die. That's it.
And what is it? It'll be 10 years since they won in Lambeau last, right? And it's going to be on Virginia's 102nd birthday. And the last time they did it was actually on Virginia's 92nd birthday. It's like, you can't make this up.
Oh my God.
It's like, oh.
And I mean, that I think is we're going to talk about this at some point, I'm sure, right? But man, saying you were going to take the North and never give it back is really
2 division wins, baby. 2 division wins in 3 years.
That would be like Lovie Smith being like, "Yo, we're going to beat the Packers," and never beat the Packers.
Well, I'm sure we'll touch on that. Finishing up the training room roundup aspect of this, really the only reason I'm highlighting these is more for future consideration going into next year and onward. They had a bunch of guys limited, didn't participate, doesn't really matter. Jair Alexander is now on IR. He has not played a lot of games for the Packers, and there's been issues more off the field in terms of what's going on behind the scenes, it seems like. You can also extend that to, I don't know, Andre Dillard is out with a concussion. That shouldn't be too long, but then if you want to go down like Christian Watson, he hasn't been participating with a knee. He's had his injury issues consistently. Quay Walker has not participated the last 2 weeks because of an ankle issue. It'll be, I think I'm saying going forward, I think it'll be interesting because there are some key pieces on this Packers team that aren't super reliable, it seems like, in terms of health. They keep finding ways to just doing what they do because they have an amazing head coach, but I'd be concerned about Jair long-term with what's been going on with that knee, like Willie won't he? I'd be concerned about what the receiver room ends up looking like if Christian Watson ultimately can never stay on the field.
I just wish, honestly, Quay Walker was playing because they get actively worse when he plays football.
Yeah, he's not as good as you would hope if you're a Packers fan.
Oh,
but I feel like the thing is, I feel like that was almost predictable. Like,
oh yeah, I mean he was all it was kind of
like athletic freak, right?
I was gonna say it's in a way it was like the Tremaine Edmonds thing. You picked him hoping the traits would translate, and it just hasn't.
Yeah, it's crazy. Good football players are good football players, and athletic freaks are more or less just that, athletic freaks.
Or it's like athletic freaks dominate in college, and you're like, oh my god, like I've never seen traits like this, or look at this guy. But without the refinement, you don't translate at the next level because everybody's a freak in the NFL.
Very true. All right. That's it. No reason to keep talking about this. We could do a quick. We're going to hear from a sponsor. We're no longer doing the Underdog ad read, so that's great. But we are going to hear from Kombucha.
Ooh. Okay. Crisp. Whoa.
That's really good.
That one's really good too.
That was good.
That's like, it's so refreshing. Like it's so good to have right before we go play.
And it has
it really quenches your thirst.
And it has the right amount of bitterness where it kind of
it's like not too sweet, not too bitter. That's what you're saying with the last one.
I like that. Mango
this one
is my favorite.
This one's the best. This one's the best.
That one. Guys, we're gonna have to argue over this. It's that one.
No, this one's so good. This one's so good.
I used to drink kombucha.
This one is good.
5 a.m. before practice every day because it woke me up and it made me feel good before practice.
That is your Chicago Lions professional women's rugby team talking about kombucha. Kombucha is a premium performance-focused kombucha crafted specifically for athletes and active individuals. This revitalizing beverage blends the traditional benefits of kombucha with nutritional enhancements to support energy, hydration, and recovery. Made from organic teas and infused with natural electrolytes, kombucha offers a delicious and effective solution to maintain peak performance, better athletic performance, increased nutrient absorption, improved wellness, and improved cognitive stamina. Use code BEARGUTCHECK, BEAR GUTCHECK, to get 15% off your order. That is still going, and you can use that over and over and over again. So go for it. All right, a couple pieces to hit before we get to some of our storylines we want to discuss specifically. One being Jalen Johnson elected to the Pro Bowl. That's pretty cool. A nice nod there because it seems like in general the Pro Bowl's stupid for a variety of reasons. One of them being the way that individuals get elected to the Pro Bowl is a bit finicky. Usually when you're on a pretty terrible team, you don't get looked at. But the fact that individuals thought enough about Jalen Johnson to get him voted in, that's pretty good. It shows how good he actually is, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, I think there was no other position where there was even a bear in the top 10 of voting, which, say what you will, like, yeah, fans have checked out. I also think it does somewhat speak to the state of the roster, where I think while Poles has done a good job of putting talent onto it, he still hasn't gotten much past average football players. There's a lot of okay players where there used to be a lot of bad and awful players. and
Yeah.
that's just still not good enough. Like who's like honestly looking at the roster, like I was like looking at this earlier, who can you say in their position group is a top 10 player? The closest I can come up to is Gervon Dexter. That's the closest I can get, and he's not there yet.
Yeah, again, very good player, ascending player. I really like Kyler Gordon. I think a healthy Kyler Gordon. If you're putting nickel,
I think he's a top 10 nickel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he's a top 10 nickel
specifically as a position. Kyler Gordon is a top 10 nickel to me. I think he's definitely one of the best players on this defense.
As much as you might hate him, Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end.
Wait,
I don't know if I can even go that far.
In my humble opinion, when you actually target him and throw him the freaking ball, he is a top 10 tight end.
If he's in the top 10, he's on the very back end of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's like number 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. But he's a top 10 tight end.
If you're top 10 in your class, like even if you're number 10,
okay, well let's
top 10.
What number tight end is he in this division alone?
Good question.
Porta, Tucker Kraft is better at football. Hawkinson's better at football.
Yeah, so he's the fourth tight end in the division. But
that's also okay. So even if that's true,
it's a
valid question. I'm not putting Tucker Kraft ahead of him personally. I'm just not, because I just think that I have issues with Tucker Kraft's availability. For one, he's missed too much football.
That's both of the tight ends in Green Bay.
Correct.
What's the kid's name from Oregon State that can't play because he's always
Musgrave.
broken?
Yeah,
Luke Musgrave. Yeah.
So I don't care how good you are if you're not available. That's been an issue for me, like a big issue. I also think Cole Kmet has dropped in this area, but I still think he's a better blocker than Tucker Kraft is. I don't think Tucker Kraft's blocking is anything to write home about. No. But to your point, Hawkinson, Laporta are definitely better than him. But that's also like, but also that's just because the NFC North in general is a better division than a lot of divisions.
Yeah, and I mean, Sam, it's like, Sam Laporta is better than him. Sam Laporta is like a top 3 tight, like your top 3 or 4 tight end. Like he's getting into that realm. Honestly,
guys that I can unequivocally say are better tight ends, right? You got those ones you mentioned. Brock Bowers is. You could say Kelsey is when he plays. He's weird.
He's also like old and hurt and stuff.
He's unequivocally broken, and they also don't design the offense to be run through
George
Kelsey
anymore. Right?
So Kittle,
it's like
George Kittle,
Brock Bowers, George Kittle, and
Trey McBride.
Njoku?
Yeah, Trey McBride is.
I would throw McBride in there. How about Njoku?
Njoku's really good. You just got to catch the damn ball, and he also doesn't do much of the blocking thing.
Yeah, he's one of those ones where it bothers me just because he has all the potential in the world. It's a whole athletic-y thing. It's just he's not quite good enough.
Njoku reminds me of Eric Ebron, was real.
That's a good pull.
That's a good one. And then Pat Freiermuth, I might throw up there too.
So he's like at the very back end.
Wait, okay, you asked me who's a top 10 player. He's a top 10 player at their position.
Yeah, I think I'd give Freiermuth a little bit of an edge over Kmet, a little bit. Yeah.
So I think and then you could depending on Mark Andrews, you might be able to throw that. So that would be your 10.
Andrews is I think Andrews is better.
So that is your 10. I wouldn't have Njoku there just because, again, the catching bothers me and the lack of blocking bothers me. Tucker Kraft isn't up there for me quite yet. Johnny Smith is someone someone throws in, but that's a whole Dolphins thing. So yeah, he's number 10.
John Smith's not. John
Smith's still pretty good.
He's not better than Cole Kmet.
But if you told me if I asked you right now, who would you rather take into 2025? Would you really take Ertz over Kmet?
Ertz is old and
Ertz is old.
Well, that's why I was throwing.
But if you're saying this Sunday. Yeah,
no, I'm saying going into 2025.
Yeah.
I think most teams would probably take Cole Kmet over Zach Ertz at this point.
At this point, yeah.
So back to your original
I just wanted to pose the question. So okay,
I appreciate
we've got Nickelback, and
corner.
Tight end, kinda, depending on who you ask.
Jalen Johnson at corner.
And Jalen Johnson.
Yep, there you go.
3. There's 3.
So I actually, because it's funny, I had this as kind of one of my prompts. I'm stealing this from Ross Reed. He had a good tweet where he basically said, a Ryan Poles, drafted player has yet to win a Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl process and system is flawed as hell, but this is not exactly fantastic. Is this a problem? And so part of that is, right, you also didn't have first round picks in the first 2 years. So I guess how many top 10 players come from rounds like 3 through 5?
Depends on the position. Like if you're in, honestly,
offensive line,
guards and centers,
which we already know that's a problem. We can put the O line. We can throw that over there because we know that's a problem.
Linebackers, a lot of times, especially in this era, are going to be coming from that realm because people don't value linebackers the way they do. And I would actually sit here and tell you to your face, there's a linebacking problem in the NFL where there's not a lot of good ones.
So here's the question: who are the top 10 linebackers in the NFL?
Defensive interior, I think, can be
two of them are in Chicago. My friend Tremaine Edmonds and TJ.
In terms of production, could you say TJ Edwards is flirting with a top 10 linebacker now?
If you're talking about just the total number of tackles, yeah. The effect on the game, though, I think if you were to throw Jack Sanborn out there, I think it would be the exact same outcome.
Because he's not doing what Fred Warner does. He's not like either creating as many turnovers nor impacting the game like in that crazy way. But so I guess that's up to your point, though. Linebacking is not as impactful on the game as it has been, even though it is still a problem because people don't have good enough linebackers. I think someone could sit there and make a case for a TJ Edwards being at least top 15, maybe top 10 linebacker.
I think TJ's issue is he was small and slow when he got to the league, and now he's had hundreds upon hundreds of collisions the past really 4 seasons when he took over as starter in Philadelphia in the last 2 years in Chicago. And you're seeing those 600 to 700 plus collisions between all the tackles and the assisted tackles and getting blocked to take
it's like that. And I mean, aside from like Gervon Dexter, who is stopping you from getting blocked, right? At the second level, you don't have consistently, good. I mean, when Billings was healthy, then that is a different discussion, but I mean, he can't help it if like he's just not getting any help up front.
To be fair, Gervon is really kind of one-trick pony. If he's not going after the quarterback and wreaking havoc off that, he's not doing much in the way of eating blocks.
But yeah, going back to your question though, in terms of the whole top 10 thing, you didn't have a first round pick the first 2 years, and then because Kyler Gordon, as we said, was a top 10. Jaquan's had his injuries. I know you have your Jaquan love, and I do too. But his plays are more the tackles, not the game-changing plays. Darnell Wright has not been worthy, in my opinion, of a top 10 pick. He hasn't shown that quite yet at all, really. And then you still have to wait on Caleb and Rome. So I think a big part of it, to your point, Danny, is I just don't know that there's also been a ton of early picks outside of O-line. We're going to put that on the shelf because we know that's a problem. I think the other spots, it's like you need those high draft picks, and they just haven't really had them.
Yeah, I also would I've also, this is not new. I don't agree with his roster building process.
Oh, for sure.
He's gone outside in. It's backwards to me. And the guy who if you had told me coming into this year, that DJ Moore wasn't going to be a top 10 receiver in football, I would have looked at you and laughed. And he is just nowhere near a top 10 receiver in football right now.
Not even close. There's the whole joke that JT O'Sullivan of QB School does for the most part, where it's like he's laughed at people calling him a wide receiver 1. And, last year I was definitely more like, what are you talking about? He's a wide receiver 1. This year, he's not even sniffing it. It's just ridiculous.
No. Yeah. Pain.
All right. Going to head coaches, because we have to at least talk about this a little bit.
Gotcha.
Danny's list changed up a little bit. He's now got Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Brian Flores, Pete Carroll, Todd Monken. My order more or less switched a bit. So I got Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Joe Brady, Brian Flores, and then Liam Cohen. And then Khari, I think yours is the same. I didn't edit it.
I would throw I would boot Joe Brady off it and throw like Brian Flores in there.
Okay, so then that would be, for those listening more for the podcast, that'd be Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Aaron Glenn, Liam Cohen, and then rounding that out with, you said Brian Flores. So
there you go.
Both of you are good for this. Whoever wants to answer this question, what is with the Joe Brady hate on both of your ends?
I don't get it. I like it really just comes down to the fact that the offense doesn't. It is tangibly different from the time that Ken Dorsey was calling plays. They're scoring more points. The issue is, if you really go and look at the numbers under Ken Dorsey, they were still really good in top 5 and like everything. It was more just, I think they needed a new voice in the room. And from everything I've delved about Ken Dorsey, he's kind of a pain in the ass. And not everyone wants to deal with the pain in the ass.
I mean,
and then
Cleveland, you know.
Oh, that's a Deshaun Watson problem. And a Jameis Winston won't stop giving the team the other ball problem. Giving the other team the ball.
Giving the other ball? The other ball?
The other ball. And then you go to his once again, Carolina's not a fair barometer, but when he was calling plays in Carolina, it was not good. And then you go back, like everyone loves to give the credit to him for the LSU thing. Like he wasn't even calling plays.
He was a part of that offensive infrastructure, though, was he not?
And it was the most stacked roster potentially in like ever. Well, not ever.
Or we can make the argument made Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I don't know that I would categorize it as, on my end, that I would categorize it as Joe Brady hate. I just think we talked about
it's hate for me. Want nothing to do with him as my head coach.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that, you know, Liam Cohen, you could say is doing more with less. Given
Can
that,
you though? Who do they have? Who do those have a wide receiver?
Listen,
Amari Cooper.
So I mean, like if you're saying that Joe
Cooper.
Brady is doing great, but he's got Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is an alien, and he's making it all work. I mean, I'm not saying like Liam Cohen is like working with a JV team or something like that, but it's like, Baker Mayfield, good player, but somebody who needs to harness his aggression, and kind of like gunslinging mentality in a more productive football. And obviously you got like Mike Evans.
I was gonna say, Mike Evans, you had Chris Godwin for the first half of the
year. Yeah. So I'm not saying that like he's working with absolutely nothing or anything, but I find his stuff a bit more innovative. I think that maybe there's a bit of a penalty, perhaps unfairly, of like, yeah, maybe Josh Allen is just making all your stuff work for Joe Brady. But I think he's a good offensive coach. Now, I think the reason for Brian Flores and why I've come around a bit on that, I am definitely worried about the quarterback coach and kind of the offensive play calling of that whole bit, because whether it was just a Tua thing, because apparently, apparently what you hear is that Brian Flores really wanted like Justin Herbert or whatever. So it's like, maybe he knows ball. I don't know. But, maybe it was just a Tua thing, but they burned through offensive coordinators and they had a bunch of clashes all the time. And I want stability for Caleb Williams. So there is that part of me that has pause about Brian Flores, which is why I put him at the bottom of the list. But in terms of just coaching football, just straight up coaching football, and coaching defensive football, I mean, who else more would you want? I mean, you look at what he's been doing in Minnesota for the last couple of years, and he's got guys in hell down there. So that's the reason that I would float him onto the list, because I think he's just a really good football coach, and I think that he is, perhaps a better head coach than the rap gave him credit for. I just really think the offense of it all, he would have to have a very compelling, plan for offense that involved continuity and stability more so than you had when he was in Miami. That's my hang up with him.
I understand what you're saying with that completely, Kyrie. I have a lot of struggle with this because I think any of us having a defensive coach on the list at all is somewhat flies in the face of everything they'd be trying to accomplish regardless.
Yeah, part of me doesn't care because I think good coaches are good coaches.
Good coaches are good coaches, and that's where you and I are in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're able to. I have Flores at 4 for that exact reason.
Yeah. I actually could see a world where, just because of the college football landscape, I could see a world just because of the connection to where Bill O'Brien could be an offensive coordinator candidate for him, because he's never coaching the NFL again. Say what you will, Bill O'Brien is a good offensive coordinator, and I know people who have said he's a pain in the ass on quarterbacks, but he gets a lot out of you. Like,
Except Mac Jones, but Mac Jones is bad, so we don't.
yeah,
We're not gonna hold that against.
no,
him.
and I'm just saying, like, it's just an idea. I'm not sitting here
No, I get you.
pounding the table for Bill O'Brien, but he is a good. He had Boston College wasn't god awful this year.
That's what I want.
No,
Not
they were,
god
they were
awful.
7-6, and I mean he had a couple of one quarterback who everybody knew he couldn't throw, and he got about as much out
on
of
this
him
topic, though, I do have obviously Ben Johnson's the crown jewel, and we all want Ben Johnson, this, that, the other.
Ooh.
If I told you right now, you can have Liam Cohen is coming to be a head coach. He is coming. He is, but the mystery box is you don't know who the alternative is. It might not be Ben Johnson. It might not be Brian Flores. It is saying the Bears are being given every opportunity to just Bears all over themselves. Do you?
So you're
take
basically
the
saying
burden?
it's Liam Cohen or the field?
Yes.
That minus Ben Johnson.
I'm confused. Like what? Like
So
what are we?
I'm guaranteed
you can definitely have Liam Cohen, but you
are
don't
for
know.
sure. You are for sure taking Liam Cohen. But if you say no to the proposal, it's the field, and you're essentially giving the Bears organization the opportunity to Bears all over themselves.
So basically, it's like you could have Liam Cohen, but you could have Ben Johnson.
You're guaranteed Liam Cohen, or for Mason's case, he likes Joe Brady more. For Mason, it's Joe Brady. You can have this coach, or you can have the mystery box.
I think I'm fine taking the field on that one because I don't think he's the best coach of the list. And I'm not just talking about offensive coach. I just don't think he's the best coach of that list.
Sure.
So,
No,
if you have a shot at Ben Johnson, you swing on Ben Johnson. If you don't, I'm cool with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, I think I would take the field as well for pretty much the same reason Kyrie said. Because, for example, Vrabel's my number 2, and so if you mystery boxed your way to Vrabel, if you Bears yourself there, I'd be happy with that. If you tell me you Bears yourself to Josh McCown, I'm going to be quite upset.
Yeah. And again, Vrabel has the same kind of stuff that I'm a bit worried about with Brian Flores, where he's had one offensive coordinator that's done much of anything with quarterbacks, and that was like Arthur Smith.
Two.
Okay, there you go. 2. So I think that and then the last year with Will Levis, and again, Will Levis and Caleb Williams are not the same. I'm not saying that. But part of me just thinks that like Mike Vrabel's a really good football coach, but I wonder if Mike Vrabel's a better football coach for a veteran team than a rebuilding one.
That's fair.
I could see that. I could see that. And I also, there's all the questions, specifically the Vrabel, of how does that relationship work with, let's assume it's Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. Like, does Vrabel still get personnel, not control, I don't think, but like a true say in the room, right? Like, is he like really going to be, or is it going to be like the Ryan Poles show when it comes to that? He is tough, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for really you do want a culture shift here because the Bears suck from that perspective, but
it's not from that perspective. They just suck, Mason.
Yeah. That's why I have him at 2. I want someone who's going to come in here. So there's a story that they were telling on Hogan Johns. Diana Rossini was telling it where I can't remember which player it was off the top of my head, but that Vrabel and his player, thank you. Yes, Ben Jones are like crying after the game just because of how much Ben Jones put into, like, in terms of playing through injuries and how much he put out there, but also the relationship that he had with Vrabel. And it's like, that's who you want at the helm. Someone who at the end of the day, like, your player is going to give their all for that coach, and that coach is going to give their all back. And it's like, why would you not want that in charge of your team?
Yeah, absolutely.
To build off of something Danny said earlier, he was talking about potentially with that, whoever it was, with the Bill O'Brien thing and building a staff. Do you guys have any concern at all about Ben Johnson building a staff and what that might look like? The reason I ask is because he's been in the league since 2012 as an offensive assistant. So he was with the Dolphins in 2012, and he was there till 2018 as wide receivers coach. That was when Adam Gase was offensive coordinator or whatever there. And then he's been with the Lions since 2019. He doesn't have the biggest net to throw out. So when it comes to, and we saw this with Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy had a problem where when he came to the Bears, he couldn't bring anyone with the Chiefs with him. So he got, Helfrich, and he got Bill Lazor were his office coordinators. And is that a problem where are you going to be able to fill out your staff with enough guys that you've worked with before instead of, well, I heard this guy is good, and so now you're trying to make that work?
So I think that would be a valid concern if he was with one coaching staff and one organization forever. That was the concern with Nagy, is that he's only ever been with Andy Reid.
Yeah.
He was with Andy Reid. He has been with Philbin and Gase. And if you go, I went into the, act of fruitless knowledge for this, and I found all the coaches that he had worked with. And it's actually quite a list.
Cool.
Of the guys that he was on staff with. It was actually Bill Lazor's one of them. Lou Anarumo, who is rumored to probably be spending his last minutes in Cincinnati, is on that list. I know it's not a sexy name, but it's just another name that came to the top of my head. I'm seeing if I can find the list because I did write it down. Come back, please. But no, to answer your question, I'm not all that concerned about it.
Cool. Khari, do you have any concerns there?
No, I think for the same reason. And what it reminds me of actually is the fact that, over here in New England, you've got a guy in Gerard Mayo who, I think, clearly has his, issues as a coach and as a rookie head coach. But that's one of the things. He only ever played for the New England Patriots. And when he coached, he only ever coached with the New England Patriots. Okay. And so when he's out there drawing from assistants and drawing or trying to figure out how he's going to fill out his staff, a lot of it was, okay, yeah, we're going to keep a lot of the defensive assistants that we already had. And then on the offense, Alex Van Pelt, which is not even to say that Alex Van Pelt's terrible. I actually think, and there have been some reports coming out about Van Pelt, that he's a lot more well-liked and well-received by players than you would think. He's not necessarily the most innovative mind in the game, but he's got a lot of respect around the league. So it's not like that was a horrible hire, but it's like, if that's kind of like the best you can do, it's like, and so I'm not sure I'm that concerned about Ben Johnson from that way, because when it comes to NFL coaches and just that circle, so much of it is just about who you know and who your connections are. And I think his
agent is.
His net is wide enough that he could pull in from a variety of sources and get kind of a true diversity of mind, where I think that it's a lot more interesting to me.
So here, just as a act in fruition, this was the quick list I got. Darren Rizzi is the interim guy, and right now in New Orleans, he's a special teams guy. Worked with him in Miami, but just rapid fire: George Edwards, Lou Anarumo, Matt Burke, Shane Day, Dow Loggins, Eric Studsville, Josh Grizzard, Al Golden, Daryl Bevel, Todd Wash, Kelvin Shepard, Deuce Staley.
Al Golden doing a masterful job against Georgia right now.
Yes, he is. Kelvin Shepard, Deuce Staley, John Morton, JT Barrett, Deshae Townsend, and receivers coach who's from Chicago area, played for Pittsburgh, now is coaching in Detroit. Who's
Antoine Randall?
So
actually, how do you not know Antoine Randall?
I blanked, Khari.
So that is a better list than I thought it would be.
It's a really deep list, and that was after like 10 minutes of research while I was at the bar with my dog.
What I need there to be an AI thing where I can just plug in Ben Johnson, and it gives me the spider web of everyone he's been with like 1 degree of separation, 2 degrees of separation.
Of Ben Johnson?
Like, I need to know the degrees of Ben Johnson, and
6 degrees of BJ.
Now you just made it weird.
So Khari had a question that he wanted to bring up. Who are the biggest competitors for Ben Johnson?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville's definitely on the list, because I think that if you're talking about Ben Johnson and who might potentially take him from the Chicago Bears, because everybody's like, oh, Chicago Bears, done deal, Caleb Williams, look at the situation, et cetera, et cetera. Still a 4-win team, and it's still the Chicago Bears organization. So I just feel like you cannot just put that in pen. You know what I mean? So I'm a little bit concerned about that. For example, people have been asking me like about the New England Patriots, like, would Ben Johnson want to go there? Now, I think that if you're looking at the overall roster, you're probably saying like, yeah, Chicago is definitely more attractive. than the Patriots are. But would you rather work for Bob Kraft or would you rather work for the McCaskies? And then when you look at, for example, the quarterbacks, and you've got two highly drafted quarterbacks here. Drake May, at least for rookie year, and again, in arguably worse circumstances than what Caleb Williams has had to deal with, minus the offensive coordinator thing, Drake May's been better than Caleb Williams. He just has. He just he processes better. He plays more on schedule. And he also, does like all the kind of ridiculous stuff in the playmaking and all that. And that's just right now. That's right now. But the film is what the film is. And what if Ben Johnson were to interview with the Patriots and be like, dude, I love this Drake May guy. He's awesome. And everybody loves Drake May here. Not saying that they don't love Caleb Williams in Chicago, but like everybody's just like, oh no, this dude he's it. What if they're like, yo, I would love to be on with the most cap space in the NFL to spend on free agents and potentially the number one draft pick that we could trade down from and get some picks off of and build a thing. Again, it's a little bit more of a pipe dream. You've got to
I actually wrote down some names. The Patriots
more.
was the number one that I had actually above the Jaguars.
So you got to squint to see it a little bit more. Whereas the Jaguars, right? That's like the Trevor Lawrence. You've got the guy in place. You've seen him in the league. He's good. I think some of it is going to be like kind of play style. And I'm not saying Caleb Williams can't play, from the pocket at all. We've seen it. Like I'm not going there. But if you're looking for a guy who's going to be a little bit more like, look, I'm going to give you the easy throws. I'm going to give you open stuff. Just throw it there. Just do what I want you to do. Don't try to play hero ball. Don't try to do whatever. There might be other more attractive quarterback options than Caleb Williams.
I've struggled with this because it feels like it should be a slam dunk, right? Mm-hmm. You're in the division. It's not too far from where you're from. Where you're coaching at currently, et cetera, et cetera.
And you've seen Caleb Williams twice. And you've seen what he can do.
And I just can't get to this point where a lot of, I think, the Bears fans has almost set themselves up for failure, where they're just assuming he's coming. Because paychecks exist. That's my biggest worry. Not necessarily with Kraft, because I've heard rumblings that the Kraft family can be a lot of things that the Bears fans claim about the McCaskey family, that they don't really spend the money.
It's true.
That's
the reputation they have on here. Can confirm.
But Shad doesn't give a damn. And to be fair, Shad's money is like kind of FU money to other NFL owners. Like he doesn't care. So
and I think that's the thing. Like Ben Johnson is going to be very selective about what he does. Like you think he's not going to want the most money.
What has Ben Johnson done that showed us that that's for sure that's his number one deciding factor is the money?
It's not, but I would also say, if I told you that the quarterback that's down in Jacksonville is kind of like if you took Jared Goff and made him a little bit more athletic and just was effectively a similar style of quarterback, because that's Goff. The problem with Lawrence, in my estimation, is he plays like a robot. He's got a lot of roboticness to how he plays. Ben, I might prefer that. Hey, do this, do that. I want you to play like this. You
know me though. I'm the wrong person to try to convince Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence has not been good this year. Like I had the take earlier, way early on this year. I think it was week 1 or week 2, where I said I would take Trevor at that point over CJ Stroud. Now neither of them look like worth that conversation. So, whatever. But it's like I just don't think it's the slam dunk people think it is.
Oh, it's definitely not.
And I also do wonder, like the Patriots worries me because their de facto GM is Elliott Wolf. He's not a GM. Ben could walk in there and effectively have control.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about stability, and Ben Johnson has said he wants to have stability with the ownership, he wants to have a relationship and a good working relationship with the GM. We're saying GM in quotes now for the Patriots. Like that would work in New England, because I mean, in my estimation, one of the best owners who's just going to make it work for you is Robert Kraft. And like you said, there's not really like a true GM there, so he could just do what he wants to do.
Yeah,
I
and
also
I mean,
do
like
wonder
he's
would-
what
would
like the
Poles see
director.
power?
Yeah, so I mean, he's like whatever, like president of football operations or something like that, some kind of nebulous title. But I mean, look at the way that they've done things for the last 24 years until this year. Was that Bill Belichick just did it all, right? So it is absolutely not out of the question and not unusual for the head coach to just have the power, right? So yeah,
Mike Vrabel
I'm not saying they're going to
Kraft wants
fire
Vrabel
Elliott
there.
Wolf, but what I am saying is that if they decide like, yo, we need Ben Johnson, then they're going to be like, hey, yeah, we got Ben Johnson, and yeah, Elliott, you're going to have to work with this guy, and we're going to give him a little bit more reign. That
And
wouldn't be the most unusual thing in the world. I mean, if Mike Vrabel were to go there, I think it'd be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But my worry is actually, we know that Poles had the power here, or has the power currently right now in Chicago. What is he willing to sacrifice? Because I feel like Ben Johnson's going to come here, and you need to give him some. Like, clearly, Eberflus had some say in the room. That's why Tremaine Edmonds is getting paid $19 million. But at the end of the day, it's Ryan Poles' call. It's his roster. It's his team. Is he willing to cede that power? And that's what I don't know.
And that's the thing that is tough, because some of the stuff that none of us know is like, what does Ben Johnson want, right? Does Ben Johnson want to be, I want that guy, I want that guy, I want that guy? Does he want that much control of a roster? Because I mean, that's not how it works in Detroit. It's that Dan Campbell isn't sitting there demanding all the players.
I think Dan probably has an outsized say. But again, I've said this.
He's got a say. He's setting the culture.
I think coaches have a much more say on roster construction than people realize.
Absolutely. The Jack Campbell pick to me is a Dan Campbell.
Oh yeah, that's
choice.
Well, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs feels like a Dan Campbell pick.
Yeah, run the ball and stop the ball.
Yeah, run the ball and stop the run. And we laughed at those picks like hell at the time. And now
I didn't laugh at Gibbs. I was excited about that.
Here's the thing. I laughed a little bit at Campbell, even though I thought Campbell's a really good player. But Gibbs, I was just like, okay, process-wise, that's terrible. But I'm also like, those mother got my guy. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. I hate them,
So Danny had a question that is super positive. Should we trust in the Bears to not totally botch this hiring cycle if they don't hire Ben Johnson? Fun.
They could screw it up regardless. I mean that's the thing. Even if they got I said this to y'all off camera. I'm not even sure I can trust them to screw it up if they got Ben Johnson. But yeah, if they didn't get Ben Johnson, I'm just over here. I find myself just thinking randomly, like, who would they end up with? Like, would they end up with Vrabel? Would they end up with like Pete Carroll? And again, this is not shade to Pete Carroll. Like, clearly, one of the best coaches in for my football history, right? But do I want to end up with Pete Carroll? No. Why would I want that? But I feel like that's the kind of thing that would end up happening.
Honestly, I think if they don't land Ben Johnson, I think you're looking at the Boston College reunion. Like, I think the relationship is there. I think Flores and him would work in lockstep.
I just don't think you can convince George McCaskey to get behind that.
I do, because of the nature of the lawsuit. George McCaskey and largely under Virginia. George Hallis was his own thing, where probably very racist. We know who he is. I mean, hell, they did, like, until when the Bears had the 100th anniversary of those uniforms, no black player had ever worn that uniform until the 100th year anniversary of that being reintroduced.
Wild as hell.
But the nature of the lawsuit itself, I think that they understand it because of what it is. It's not like he's going scorched earth just because.
Right. I just don't. Coming from the guy who also just doesn't want swearing on Hard Knocks, I find it hard to believe that you're going to want the media circus that comes with that, because that's going to be a conversation constantly. And
so
also
funny.
the guy who, I mean, he's a hard ass. He's going to be
People-
swearing up
people
and down. And
think for everything people think Vrabel is, multiply that for Flores is intense as hell.
yeah, for the combination of it, not necessarily
But
for
I
what
think
the
that
lawsuit is,
relationships matter, man.
but
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's what I like Brian Flores. I wanted them. He was my number one choice 3 years ago when they hired Eberflus, and I just knew with that lawsuit being so new to the league, it was never going to happen.
my
And
Ben Johnson,
Flores
who
has
I
the
think
Tomlins.
I was gonna say if they don't get Ben Johnson, who I think they end up getting, is actually Cliff Kingsbury.
Blech.
That's because I'm going to what is the thing I would hate the most, and I'm also trying to follow the pattern, right? It's the offense, defense, da 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 da. So he is the previous head coach, so he checks that box for you, and he is the offensive
But
guy.
he sucks.
You asked me who I thought it would be if you don't get Ben Johnson, who the break in case of emergency stupid Bears decision is. To me, it's Cliff Kingsbury.
God,
You know what though? You know what? I can see it because they're gonna be like, well, he knows Caleb really well. And I'm over here just thinking about the time that Kyler Murray after a game was like, yo, schematically, we were effed. And I'm just kind of like, yep, I can't wait for Caleb to say that.
So
Which is, by the way, this is a random I'm going to make this quick. But there's a part of me that's like, if Mike Vrabel were to come here and it's like, oh, yeah, he's bringing Josh McDaniels, low key, having watched the Josh McDaniels offense up close and seeing how people talk about it, I would not necessarily be thrilled about that for Caleb Williams.
I was going to say, I think Dave McDaniels would hate coaching Caleb.
Well, because he comes from that thing of like, throw the ball where I tell you to throw it. And like there, and also here's the thing, why it's complex is because it puts so much on the quarterback. And it requires a lot out of quarterbacks and wide receivers to be on the same page, which is why there were like never any good outside receivers in New England, because it was just too complicated. They draft these guys and they'd flame out because they don't know where they're supposed to be, because there are 7 options on every route they're supposed to do, depending on what the quarterback sees. And you have to see it the same way. And if you don't, you're going to have Josh McDaniels rolling up on you in training camp being like, God damn it. And it's like, I could just hear it in my head right now.
The rumor is
because you didn't see the game the way he was supposed to see it. And you're like, I just don't know that I want my second-year quarterback dealing with that. It's a great offense to come up in if that's all you know. But I don't know that I want a guy having to learn that. And even though McDaniels is kind of a bit of a chameleon, where he can, I think, come up with new ways to sort of play around people's strengths. Like the bones of that offense are still going to be what they are.
The offense for our listeners that Kyrie's referring to was the one. It's referred to as Earhart Perkins. It's what McDaniels coaches, and to a lesser extent, that is a lot of what actually Shane Waldron was looking to install here in Chicago. But instead of McDaniels, you had Timu brand McDaniels doing it here with Waldron.
All right, one more question, and we'll wrap up with one that has a Packers theme to it, since technically this is a Packers preview show.
Gross.
What ultimately matters more on Sunday? And I'm very curious, especially on Danny's take on this, just because knowing how he looks at things. Seeing Caleb beat the Packers or losing for draft status?
I don't give a damn about draft status this year. I don't care. You were supposed to win games. And I don't think you want to go into the season having an 11-game losing streak. And I know it doesn't matter for the culture and whatever. It matters, I think, for that kid, though. Mm-hmm. Mouthwash, just sometimes a little bit of mouthwash makes your mouth feel better, right? It's been a shit burger for 10 weeks now.
Yeah.
You actually, whatever, man. I know I'm probably in the minority in that one. The only benefit, I think, to losing is I think I'm just over the polls experience. You can't tell me this is okay right now. The 2 longest team losing streaks have both been under his watch, and I get the first time it was for the greater good and getting the number 1 pick.
Yeah,
this is so much more than coaching. the
And
culture that
think,
you spoke about and you championed for months and weeks sucks. And then you had the audacity to say you saw some of these problems in camp and you didn't bother to try to fix them. What is the flex in saying that? Like, oh, we saw this in camp.
You wanted to give guys a chance. You know,
How do you fix that in camp?
I wrote about this today, and you know, again, it's always you always want to take things in context, and you always want to answer that question or ask that question of like, okay, how much of it was really his fault? So yeah, year number one, they wanted to be bad. They got what they wanted. They improved in the second year. And then it got worse in year three when it was supposed to start getting better. And that part is like, you can't deny that. I guess it's like, in the end, you know, process matters, but it's a results business. And the results just haven't been there. And I think that part of the reason the results haven't been there is like bad decisions that were made in the process along the way. And even one that sticks in my head a little bit that I just want to just get out there is the idea of taking Thomas Brown away from the offensive coordinator position and put him in as an interim head coach when Richard Hightower was a head coach of one of the Shrine Bowl teams. There's a dude who literally did the job at the Shrine. And I know it's the Shrine Bowl, right? But it's like he's actually like done that job and like kind of been in that position, ordered things, organizing practices, et cetera, et cetera. And you had a good thing going with Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams, and you took them away from that when you didn't have to do it. And there's that part of me that's just like, even little things like that don't even really matter that much in the big picture are still an irritant to me. But in terms of the like draft status thing, I feel like it's overrated at this point because you've got the quarterback already. You've got Caleb Williams. What do we care about? I feel like we've gotten too locked into, oh, well, you should just tank for draft status now. Because we've been doing that for years, and that's just all we have to look forward to is tanking so that we can maybe get a new quarterback or maybe get this shiny new toy or whatever. There's no big shiny new toy coming out of this draft. Not really.
Ashton GT.
So I agree pretty much with you guys. I will play devil's advocate just for the sake of having a conversation that isn't the exact same. Right now, the Bears have about a 38% chance to end up with the 8th pick, 23 for 7, 5 for 6, and then a less than 1% chance to end up with the 5th pick. Let's say in this magical world, you are currently where you're at, which is at 9.
In a world,
and in theory, you could have, if you lose this game specifically, and a couple other things happen because it depends what happens with like Jacksonville, Carolina, the Jets, and Vegas. Those are the other 4 win teams. If you miss out on a Mason Graham because he gets taken 1 pick before you at pick 8 instead of at pick 9. I mean, how many times have we raged at like, man, we missed that player by a pick?
Yeah,
I get it.
Aaron Donald and Kyle Fuller.
Kyle Fuller was a good football player, though, and you could.
He was. You missed out on one of the greatest, defenders of all time. But it's true, they didn't miss on that pick, right?
No, my point though, they didn't miss on the pick, but it was because of if you win this game and everyone feels good and slapping Caleb on the back, like, look, we got to win, mouthwash. But then you're changing the draft status from pick 7 to pick 9, and you miss out on Aaron Donald. I'm using air quotes here because whatever. You complain about that later. Like I'm just saying that's a discord that does happen.
Yeah, it's a discourse that happens, but I mean, it's it's loser conversation though. You don't.
Yeah, but we and the Bears are losers though.
Yes, they are.
Associations are we, so it just is what it is. The Super Bowl is the draft, Danny.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's the only Super Bowl the Chicago Bears fans have. It's the freaking draft every single year.
Yeah, well, that and one that was played 5 years before I was born. That one's fun.
Yeah.
We did have that one Super Bowl that we were around for, which the first team to that Super Bowl count.
Being the first team to blow a 2-possession lead in the first half and lose the Super Bowl.
Stop it.
So yes, the devil's advocate in this is if you miss on a Mason Graham, an Abdul Carter, a Will Campbell, are you now upset? Are you upset because we got that win, but we settled for Kelvin Banks instead of drafting Will Campbell. That's just
cool.
That's
you got the tackle and not the guy who's going to kick into guard. That's fine.
Yeah, but what if it's a Quentin Nelson-esque guard versus a Mike McGlinchey-esque tackle? I just don't like how I haven't really stove into this heavy yet.
The Chicago Bears need either one. The Chicago Bears could actually deal with a Mike McGlinchey ass tackle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that, Will Campbell feels like one of those guys that, at least for the Chicago Bears purposes, you just take because he's a good
take and live with the result.
And you
take the best fat guy that's there.
Yeah, it's like you just need one. And you play him. He could play 4 of the 5 offensive line spots and do it better than like 3 of the guys you've got there now.
I am telling you right now, if their first 2 picks don't address each side of the trenches, I'm going to be livid. Or at least 2 of the first 3. Because I think you actually probably could take a wide receiver.
So you're telling me first round Ashton Jeanty.
You think they would take?
Then you go offensive line, defensive line in the second round.
I think they would. I do.
Because
maybe, but damn, that's tough. If you got DJ
Moore, you're like, you got a big angry white running back from Arizona State who's running over everybody.
Okay, everyone. So put your mark on it. Where is Scatterbo?
You would not. There's no way.
4th round.
Early. This is January 2nd, 2025. Where is he being drafted in terms of like which round?
4th round. That's as high as he'll go. He's old. He's not fat. He's not athletic. I have a whole scouting report written on him already. I've broken down his film already because
of course your ass did. Of course you did.
I put.
Why you say it like that?
Because I know you. Because I know you can't resist. You're just like, oh, nobody can tackle this guy. Yeah.
All right, so you heard it here first. Ashton Jeanty is going to be drafted by the Bears, and then the Bears will take a defensive lineman, according to Danny.
And then in the 4th round, they'll take Scatterbo, and it'll be the Jeanty Scatterbo show.
I couldn't wait. Honestly, there's a part of me that now wants this to happen. It's like if it was Jeanty and Scatterbo, just wait for like the segment of fans where I'd be like, put Scatterbo in. That Jeanty guy sucks. And
Ben Johnson needs his knuckles and
you're basically saying all of Mount Greenwood and Beverly, right?
Yes. Come on, you know what language I'm speaking here, bro.
All right. That's what we have for the show today. It was just more of a venting dump of just topics for the day. This game, at the end of the day, like we're all going to watch it to an extent, depending on how much it is, because we're sick like that. But also, we want to see some positive stuff out of Caleb and out of this offense as a whole. It's
real quick.
That's kind of it.
I could just interject real fast. So we're talking about the draft. The Bears do have $61 million currently of effective cap space. So it's not like they can't fill some of those needs in other places. So it's like, hey, you get yourself some offensive linemen. Ashton Jeanty.
I love that Khari is fully on the Ashton Jeanty thing, and that you would fully expect that to be me because I'm the running back guy. Like I believe running backs matter.
I was a running back. So look, there's a part of me that's always like, listen, I understand the idea of not going running back in the top 10, but there are certain guys that break the mold, and the ones that you expect to break the mold usually break the mold.
And let me be clear, as much as I like Scatterbo, he does not break the mold. Big and slow does not break the mold. We actually just saw the Bears draft Big and Slow a couple years ago, and now he's concussed.
Stop. Okay, yeah, we got cut.
Okay, that is all we have for today. Just look forward to the off season, and also don't just like Danny was talking about. If it's not Ben Johnson, it's not the end of the world. Like
it's not
O'Connell. He was only interviewed by I think 3 teams, and he wasn't like some of the first guy interviewed. Yada yada yada. But now look at the Vikings. So everyone just
it's gonna be Mason's favorite guy from Arizona.
It's just random too. Like now I'm thinking about that about Kevin O'Connell, and I've had like people who work in like coaching circle, like coaching consulting, and be like, yeah, Kevin O'Connell guy, damn, he's so handsome. And I'm just kind of like, well, you know what? Maybe that was it.
So you want Cliff Kingsbury is what you want. Handsome as hell.
And his ridiculous, like whatever that California, Arizona ass like house.
Yes. I'm glad you had a house to the
NFL cribs. All right, yeah, no, we've gone off the rails there, but I mean, it's just funny because like that's like one of the things I think about now. This dude, I'm like on this phone call, and this guy's like, man, that's a handsome dude, and I'm like, look, if you've heard of quarterback face, as Colin Cowherd used to say it.
Oh, we say that, but Marcus Freeman's handsome as hell too.
Marcus, look, I mean, we had a whole thing with like some some of my women friends. Mom friends who are just like NFL coaches who can get it. Marcus Freeman, not an NFL coach, but he's top of the list.
I don't know what y'all are talking
What
about.
is this show?
If you look at like the Super Bowl winning coaches, they're not good looking guys.
Bill Belichick is a freaking ogre, bro.
Andy Reid, no.
Like
Sean McVay is maybe the only one. Bruce Arians, no. Bill Belichick, no. Doug Peterson,
but
no.
Bruce Arians is so
no.
cool.
Pete Carroll, no. John Harbaugh is mid.
You don't think Pete Carroll? Oh, I would disagree. Pete Carroll's he's old, but in his day he was handsome.
He's got like
he's one of those guys. You got to de-age him. He's like you get like de-age Mark Hamill or something.
Great. So that half the coaches that are interviewing for this are not old, and so that doesn't even work for this scenario.
All right, we got to get up out of here.
This is it.
This is dumb. What is this?
We got to do a whole show on this in the off season.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, the
rating the handsomeness
Mary
of
Fuck Hill head coach candidates. Thanks everyone for joining us this year. It's been a rough year. We know that. Thanks for sticking with us this year. We appreciate it. Your listening, your likes, retweets, sharing, like all of that really matters. Go ahead, please follow Second City Gridiron to get updates. Follow all of us. You can find all that information either on the screen or if you go to the YouTube link, all of our ats are there. And tune in for this off season. We are definitely going to do some kind of either pre and definitely post head coach reaction. We're going to keep doing the mock draft stuff where we are going to be giving as much information on prospects as we can. Danny always does a great job with that, being very active with that. And I lean on him a lot. I just kind of stumble my way through my ideas.
Breaking news, guys. The Jets have completed interview with GM candidate Louis Riddick.
Yep, saw that.
Bears fans' favorite hopeful GM, yeah.
Who probably isn't any good because no one ever hires him for anything.
No, it's funny. He has great PR, though. Like, everybody be out here talking up Louis Riddick.
And on that note, bear down.
Hey, what has two thumbs and hates Todd Packer? This guy.